about your bill, Code of Ethics?
The Code of Ethics, basically what it would mean is that no elected official, even appointed official, could accept any kind of PAC money or gifts from any of the investment firms in New York or in Pennsylvania or any other state. They would be strictly prohibited from accepting, especially elected officials, leaders in the House and Senate, Democrats and Republicans, members of the board that are appointed by the legislature, from accepting any PAC money whatsoever, gifts, trips, none of it. I might add that that already exists in the gaming law and the banking legislation that's on the books. So this isn't anything new, but it would prohibit any potential improprieties, I'll put it that way, that may allow favorites to be shown to certain investing groups that are operating with our billions of dollars in our pension funds.
Is the Code of Ethics bill going to address any of the recommendations by Jack Wagner?
Yes, there are several pieces within that Code of Ethics that I already enumerated, but there's more. The rest of his recommendations, by the way, would be with Representative McGinnis's bill that I worked with him on, that he's going to be presenting, and it's basically we're calling it the Bill of Rights for the pension people that are both on and still paying into it, which would eliminate the risk investments that we had in, I think it was 2001, that was changed by state law. We need to reinstitute that, or just no more risk investments. And the other big piece of that would be the elimination of the management fees, or the very restrictive use of management fees.
Okay. So basically what they're doing, Tom, is prior to 2001, they could only put a maximum of 2%
Yes, sir.
in high-risk investments. So by the time the market crash happened, they were up to about 47%,
Yes.
which caused them to take a major loss. And because of the recommendations of Jack Wagner, they have not addressed Jack Wagner's request
That's true.
to cut back on the high-risk investments and the high management fees.
And to drive that point home, it was just recently this year where new Auditor General Gene DePasquale told the boards not to make any more investments. I believe it was derivatives. They had dumped, I think it was 1.5 or $7 billion. I think it was 1.5 billion. And contrary to his recommendation, they spent or dropped another 400 million into those same risk investments, which didn't seem to make any sense. Even after the Auditor General, the new Auditor General that's been sitting, advised them not to do it, they went ahead and did it.
So we have two Auditor Generals giving them recommendations,
Yes, sir.
and they are basically not abiding by anything that you're saying.
No, they're not. No. And this is just contrary to good, prudent man investment practices, as you have taught me about how they really should be handling the taxpayers' monies, and more importantly, the pensioners who have been putting in over all these years. It's 4.5%, 5.5%, 6.5%, almost 7% now of the gross. So they haven't been part of the problem. Shame on us in the legislature. I admit, I was as guilty as anybody when we voted on those pension issues way back when. Based on information given to us by our leaders in the respective caucuses, Democrats and Republicans, and the governor's office, we were led down the rosy path, and a lot of people bought into it. Do I admit we made a mistake? Absolutely. Am I perfect? No, I'm not. Based on information that we supposedly get from our professionals and from those board members and the staffs that they hire, you figure, well, they're the ones. They should know what they're talking about. That's what they deal with those jobs. And we were sold a bill of goods. I think it was that simple.
So basically, what you're saying, Tom, the information that you received was false information.
Yes.
And if I remember correctly, last year, Mike Torzai was on PCN with Chris Ross, Mike Tobosh, and they actually addressed that on PCN not quite a year ago. But they've, even though this has happened, they have not addressed this issue to confront us.
No, and people have got to understand, one of the driving problems that we have with the state budget as well as the local school district budgets has been the underfunding of the pensions. And as you have pointed out after reviewing the 3 reports, the commission that comes out annually, the ESSERS, State Employees Retirement, and the PSERS, School District Retirement Plan, you reviewed 8, 9, 10, and 13, and you saw dramatically the risk investments, the high management fees, and how they squandered opportunities to double those pension funds. And if they would have done exactly as you said, indexing and frugal investments, prudent man use, and stop the high risk nonsense, and I concur with your analysis that they would have doubled their money in both their funds and it'd be no problem, no problem. Now the problem's being dumped on us and they're saying, well, we've got to raise X millions of dollars or billions of dollars in bond issues, which we'd have to pay back. And still in all, they continue to do business the way they have been. They haven't changed their mode of operation one iota, even after all of this information has been coming out.
Wasn't it just recently in the Philadelphia Inquiry to where the SERS put in that they didn't meet their projected rate of return?
Yes, yes.
And actually, in that report, if they would have used, according to John McGinnis, if they would have used Vanguard,
Right.
There would have been an additional $2 billion in that account.
Exactly, exactly.
So there's $2 billion that's just gone
Exactly.
because of improper investing.
And the high management fees, you know, when you showed me the report on those, that 1 5-year period where we paid out state employee system $1.5 or $1.7 billion in management fees, I was stunned. And then when I found out it's costing us, from your research, $500 to $600 million a year for management fees with the PSers, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, they're making more money on our money than we are. When they came out that time, they responded to us in the newspaper, the one guy that since has left as executive director, and I questioned why he left, and I'll get to that in a second, that, oh, they made 10% in 5 years. Well, I said, do the math. It's 2% a year. It's not a lot of money on $25 billion. So at the end of previous year, last year, he left, only to find out later that he was only working 3 days a week for whatever, $200,000-$300,000 a year that he was making. 3 days a week, and then they found out that he was doing day trading, which means he was buying stocks and or bonds on our ticket while working for us. But he left, and so did the chairman of the board. And now we understand that as of a couple weeks ago, the executive director of the PSers has finally left also. And then I'm trying to connect the dots and I'm wondering, is there anything going on there? I'm a little suspicious. And then when you see what happened with Cord, and as a matter of fact, Cord was sitting as treasurer ex officio on both boards, ESSERS and PSERS. Question one, how much money was he getting in campaign contributions from those firms, directly or indirectly? And see, this is the poison of the well that I think may be taking place with the way money is being handled with these pension funds. It's just my suspicion of it.
Can I also ask a question that I connected this in? Was McCord, did you not also say at one time McCord was on the board of the municipal?
Local municipal, yes.
That did make money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point, because Richard asked me to get that municipal pension fund report, which I did. It's an annual report. And I forget, they were making 8, 9, 10% or something
Yes.
phenomenal.
In fact, since prior to the crash, the municipal funds actually made money. They have a surplus now. They're up like 120%.
Right.
While the SERS and the PSERS has lost and still behind probably about 20%.
And that's the question mark. What are they doing we should take a page out of their book and use it with the other two state pension plans.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Well, actually, the local had a lot in indexed mutual funds, and that's the reason they didn't take the hit. That's number one. Number two, they weren't paying the excessive fees, management fees. But my concern is that McCord was on all three boards,
Yes, yes.
and he left two of them use the high management fees and the higher risk investments, and the municipal plan did not have this in it. I would have thought he would have known better or shared this information between the boards.
That's the mystery. You're exactly right. Why? Why didn't that happen then? That makes you wonder, although in reality, the municipal pension boards is only in the millions. I forget how many millions. I mean, I'm not knocking it, don't misunderstand me. But when you look at the ESSERs and PSERs, roughly 25 billion and 50 billion. But the bottom line is, if they would have been doing what we have discussed, prudent man investment, not high management fees or risk investments, they could have and they probably would have doubled their money and there'd be no pension problem. This is the bottom line. Nobody wants to address that publicly. They hide under the fact that, we've got a pension problem that we've got to fund somehow, we've got to raise taxes or do bond issues. Cut me a break.
Well, wasn't it in 2006 that when Jack Wagner gave the recommendations, that he stated if they don't follow these,
Yes.
he predicted this problem in 2012 or 13.
Yeah, and it's come to pass. What he predicted has actually happened.
The audit that Jack did, I know that was given out to a lot of the people that were involved.
Right.
Did you as a legislator
No.
receive that?
No. No, I can say that I kind of think that what they've done on these kind of reports that don't favor what they've been doing with pension boards, that's like in-house only to maybe members of those boards and a handful of other people. But going back to the 1990s, as you had pointed out, we used to have basically, 3 investment firms, and now you fast forward to 2015, and it's close to 300 investment firms now that are handling or manhandling our pension monies.
So the more firms, the more
Yeah.
money that's going out.
Yes, sir.
So basically, you could say high management fees equals lower rate of return.
And
Because that's really what happened.
That's exactly what's been happening. Exactly, you're right. And they can throw all the stones they want at me for saying that we don't know what we're talking about. And I keep referring them, read your own reports. We're not pulling that information out of midair. That's coming from the actual annual reports that are filed. And, when you talk about 25 billion and 50 billion, and they're claiming they're making all this money, show me. If you were making all those types of investments that were giving us good returns on those investments, we would not have the problem we're having. I mean, bottom line is, how much money have you made us? And you had pointed out, if they would have been doing what I think has been suggested by Jack Wagner, the other research that's been done, they should have and could have doubled their money and there would be no pension problem. That's the bottom line. Now, how do we get out of this mess? That's the next question.